Hi guys and welcome to Equestrian. Today I'm gonna introduce a few exercises all based on turns. So we often tend to think that the lateral movements are meant to be performed only by advanced horses and riders. In my opinion, these exercises are like any other. See, the lateral movements benefit both the horse and the rider, and you don't have to perform them at a Grand Prix level for them to be beneficial. As I said, we're gonna start each one of these exercises with a turn and then end it with a turn. Let's just go back to our last vid and look at this picture right here. You can see the rider is turning their body from the hips up. You can find the video regarding turns on our page, so we'll just skip that part. You can perform so many movements in this exact position. So the position of the rider and the horse visible in our picture isn't going to change at all. The only thing I'm going to change are the aids and cues. In the end, we're gonna combine all these cues and create a huge sequence which may surprise some of you, but trust me, it is really beneficial. Let's start off with something easy to understand for our horses. That would be the turn on the forehand. So we slightly move our leg back, telling the horse to move its hind end to the side. Most horses catch this exercise quickly if they get rewarded for doing it. So what's important when turning on the forehand? Firstly, you need to secure your horse's legs. It is important that your horse doesn't hurt himself while trying to perform this exercise for the very first time. I recommend using either wraps or boots with some bubbles on, preferably on all fours. Secondly, you need to keep your horses moving forward. This exercise is performed in walk and requires a 4-beat gait, which means that all four of our horses' legs need to take steps. The front quarters should make very small steps, but they should move. Another thing to keep in mind is that our horse's hind end should move away from the pressure. Our leg aid should be short, about 2 to 3 seconds. If the cue lasts too long, the horse may begin to resist the pressure and eventually start moving towards the aid and not away from it. Next thing to remember is that each step needs to have a brand new cue. So we release the pressure and put it back on to make another step. And lastly, our horse's hind inside leg should engage and push forward in each and every step. So how does the turn on the forehand benefit me and my horse? It helps the horse understand the following things. That the leg doesn't necessarily mean speed. Quite an important lesson to learn if you ask me. That its spine can bend to the side. For some horses it's a huge discovery and a cool skill to use in the pasture when playing with other horses. That they can stretch their body in many different ways. Okay, but how does it benefit me as a rider? It teaches you how to use just one of your legs at a time. It improves your horse's obedience. It also betters your ability to control the horse's hind end, which improves the quality of your ride. Let's go over the turn on the forehand step by step from the horse's point of view. The first step is quite easy. The horse just needs to engage its hind inside the leg to make some room for the one under pressure. The second step is also obvious. The horse has to move its other hind quarter away from the pressure, and at this point the rider should release the pressure. Then we get to the third step gets quite messy, because what is the horse supposed to do with its tangled up legs? It's not the easiest thing to figure out, especially if you're desperately trying to get your well-deserved treat as fast as you possibly can. What's most important is that the horse doesn't back up, so I usually try to go forward after these few steps so that I don't lose the engagement in the hind end, so I can reward the horse for a well done exercise. Only after the horse learns that it is expected of him to move forward, we can try doing really small steps with the front legs to let the horse get back his balance. After that, we can continue stepping with the hind end to the side. Let's move on to another similar exercise, which would be the pirouette. Again, we're gonna start with a turn, but now we're gonna use our outside rein and shoulder instead of our leg. We can strengthen these aids by using our outside thigh, but first, a little disclaimer. Let's talk about the leg and the calf usage. We often talk about using our leg, and by that we mostly mean our calf. But in these exercises, there are a lot of different ways of using our leg. Let's remember that our leg isn't limited to our calf only. We can use our whole leg starting at the thigh, throughout the knee and the calf, and to the heel. Each of these parts affects the horse differently, and using these parts in different combinations gives you completely different signals. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's move on back to the pirouettes. We put up a wall with our outside rein and move the horse around its inside hind leg, which also doesn't lose its forward motion. What's important in the pirouette? Don't forget to protect the horse's legs, and I won't be repeating it again since it makes no sense to say that in each and every exercise. Just remember that. It is important that the horse in the first step puts its front outside leg in front of the inside front leg. That is, crosses his legs while keeping up the forward motion. The next step is simple. The horse has to support itself because its legs are tangled. The horse will move the inside front leg sideways towards the center of the circle. Our role is only to ensure that this movement is as wide and large as possible. The third step is to move forward with the other legs, and then the sequence starts, again with brand new aids. Remember to keep moving forward. It's better to make a mini circle with your hindquarters than to back up or make tip-top steps. What do we gain from this exercise? The horse gains flexibility in the shoulder. We reveal a whole new set of different sideways movements for the horse. Improves the breast, shoulder, and neck muscles, which is quite useful. Increases engagement of the hindquarters and significantly improves its musculature. Betters the responsiveness. The rider, on the other hand, improves riding throughout turns and arena corners, improves the inside rein aids and stabilizes them, strongly improves the horse's obedience, especially in turns, stabilizes the outside part of the rider's body, increases the precision of the aids, and separates the movement of different body parts. When performing this exercise, make sure that the movement is as extensive as possible and that each step is larger so the legs cross further. At the beginning, I suggest exiting the exercise after one step, so after all 4 legs move. You can move up to doing the full sequence later. The pirouette is possible in all gaits. For jumpers, performed in canter, will give great opportunities for making shortcuts and tightening turns. With the other disciplines, do I need to talk about the advantages? Just take a look at the jumping, western, or dressage competitions. Everyone uses this exercise and needs it. After all, it isn't that bad, right? If you don't really know how to go about this exercise, I recommend simply thinking about carrying the horse's front end, preferably towards the stable. It will most likely help the horse understand this exercise, and don't forget to reward your horse. Now, if the outside aids work, let's move on to the inside aids. We're gonna move on to the leg yields. So again, we're gonna start with a simple turn and suggest crossing all 4 legs to move to the side away from the pressure of our leg. We're gonna use our leg on our horse's belly, and in the flexion gained while turning, we're gonna go sideways. It is important that the leg works in each and every step, gently but clearly enough for the horse to know that it isn't supposed to run forward like crazy. The easiest way to introduce this exercise is to enlarge a strong turn. Here, let's quickly go back to our leg aids. As you can see in the picture, the calf doesn't really move around. It simply works to get sideways movement. I recommend using the knee as well. The more stabilized the leg yield is, the straighter the horse becomes. What's important in leg yields? The most important thing is to keep the forward movement. The legs in all gaits can only cross while going forward, not backward. I hope the photos will clear that up. The idea of this exercise is to open up the shoulder and not close it up, to get a nice and large movement, also to improve the extended gaits, so we can't restrain the forward motion. What does our horse get from the leg yields? It gets increased shoulder mobility, better movement, better flexibility, a new skill which is moving to the side that becomes useful in the posture, increasing the involvement of the hindquarters and strengthening the hind end muscles. What about the rider? The rider improves control, increases the horse's suppleness, improves comfort in the saddle, so the horse's spine becomes more relaxed and it is easier for the rider to sit, the canter, the trot, anything. Increases the mobility of our hips and separates the calf movement from the rest of the body. It may surprise you at first how huge the sideways movement can be. You need to follow this movement so the hips will work separately from each other. The leg yield will take some of your stored energy, so it's good to gain a little more engagement at the beginning of this exercise, preferably in the turn. If your horse is a hot horse, the type to rush forward, you will be delighted with the effects of this exercise. It will give jumpers a unique opportunity to widen the turn at any given point in time without having to change the flexion and without changing your lead and canter. Always remember about the main goal, which is to increase the range of motion and maintain the forward movement. That is, your hands need to go forward with the horse. Since we now have gained some inside and some outside aids, we can move on to the next exercise, one of the two after the leg yielding, in which the horse isn't looking in the direction it is going. So that would be the shoulder in or out. A shoulder in is easier, so let's talk about that first. The horse's hind legs go straight as they would normally, and the front legs cross. It's best to imagine that we are passing by something very interesting for us and the horse, but we can't stop. We want to take a look, right? It is important that the thing is tall enough to get the lightness of the front end and not get our eyes fixed on the ground. A lady with an umbrella will be the best example. Let's start with the same aids we use for the turn. We will lead the hind end straight and we will keep our shoulders in the same positions as we had while turning by staring at something on our side. The exercise is suitable for all gaits. This is one of my favorite exercises actually. So on each of these funny drawings I tried to show you which aids should work and in which direction they should work. What does this exercise give us? It helps the horse gain lightness of the front end and the shoulder, improves the shoulder, neck, hind end, and back muscles, gains joint flexibility and mobility, get a more important position in the herd, and a new cool skill to show off, gain strength and self-confidence, improve self-courage. It also helps the rider increase the comfort of riding because it provides much better engagement of the hind end, stabilize the aids and movement of the outside rein, improve contact and lightness on the inside rein, increase safety by controlling the horse's shoulders, and it also is a nice way to introduce proper counter canter if it is done while widening a circle. Here I'd like to throw in a small digression. All these exercises can be done bridleless, for example on a neck rope. The only condition is that the aid aimed at controlling the horse's shoulder works. While performing the shoulder in, you may be surprised by the lightness of the horse's front end. You can get the impression that the neck has shortened, moved back, and now is fully under your control, an almost dance-like experience. You should gain stabilization and strengthening of your contact on the outside rein, and at the same time your inside rein should get loose. Even if your inside rein is completely loose, you shouldn't pick it up. Instead, you should think about whether the horse's outside shoulder can actually be led or whether it's slipping away from your aids. If it in fact is starting to be uncontrollable, we should leave the exercise and immediately go on a vault or a small circle and repeat the exercise until the horse gets used to the straightness, gains balance, and suggests one or two steps more. It is best for the horse to continue the shoulder in on its own. This exercise increases hind engagement and power while increasing control. If you feel otherwise, then something is just not right. What else can we do with the flexion gained in our turn? let's go back to the exercises where the horse's head is set in the direction of its movement. The traverse and the renverse. Hind end in or out. Again, the traverse, so the hind end in, will be easier. It's also an exercise that can be performed in all gaits. It is so easy that most of the time we simply overthink it, thinking that it's something really advanced. We just need to think about our turn and the outside leg gait similarly to the turn on the forehand. Only now the rest of the horse, except for the hindquarters, is calmly going straight. The easiest way to introduce the traverse is to take one step where the hind end is going inside and one forward. Of course, the aids need to be performed all over again in each and every step of the way. At the beginning, 2 or 3 steps is absolutely okay and should be rewarded. What does the traverse do? The horse increases the flexibility of their lumbar region, relaxes the back, increases the straightness. It encourages thinking and increases the sensitivity to various leg aids. The rider increases control over the hind end, allows a stronger hind end engagement while maintaining flexibility. It also makes our calves work separately, improves control over the hind end, and this exercise also enables much better performance of flying lead changes in canter and counter canter. The exercise itself may surprise you with its ease. Horses have certainly walked a bit sideways under you for various reasons. This is a nice exercise for horses that are slightly crooked to one side, similar to the shoulder in. Sometimes you get a feeling of losing the engagement. After all, the hind end in the traverse is on the side, so that is completely normal. Sometimes after such relaxation, it is hard to engage the hind end again. This immediately verifies the effectiveness of the aids that engage the hind end. Now that we have gone over each and every one of these exercises, you can ask your horse for a half pass. This exercise is physically quite demanding for the horse, as it requires engagement, crossing the legs, responding to outside aids, and maintaining the impulse all at once. Generally speaking, the aids for the half pass are a combination of the previous ones. The front goes inside, as in the shoulder in, and the hind end also goes inside, as in the traverse. So the outside aids maintain this movement. We're still basing our exercise on the turn and the same flexion as previously. The exercise itself takes a lot of energy, so it's worth getting a bit more engagement at the beginning and thinking about how to leave this exercise to maintain the energy and the flexibility. This exercise is to be performed in all gaits. So what do we get from the half pass? The horse gets strength, flexibility, and power. The rider gets total control over each one of the horse's legs separately, and total control over each of their own limbs separately, and over the position of the head, which weighs quite a lot. You also get incredible comfort and safety while riding, and a very nice and obedient horse. In the half pass, you really have to put in the effort to maintain your energy and get into a nice turn and a good extended gait to give your horse a chance to get his balance back after this exercise. This can be accompanied by kind of a slow motion feeling and moving each leg separately, and that's good. It is important that the horse's nose clearly goes forward in the designated direction. Then we get the lightness and the flexibility. Now let's put it all together. Why not play around with the flexion and suggest the sequence of exercises I talked about at the beginning? One of my favorites is the transition from the leg yield to the shoulder in and then into a circle. Others are the so-called zigzag. Let's take a closer look at it actually. The inside leg is moving the horse away from it in the leg yield, and the outer leg works in the half pass. Now we need to make a few steps in one direction and then in the other without changing the flexion. So first we leg yield a few steps, and then we do a half pass in the other direction without changing the flexion. I also like to finish my half pass with a pirouette and an extension. This way I get amazing engagement and control, so the extensions get spectacular. Of course, without overloading the horse with engagement and work. I really hope that with these diagrams I have slightly decomplicated the lateral movements. You will definitely gain the precision of your own aids this way and come up with a lot of your own sequences of movements. With these exercises, flexion is really important. Many of these may become useful while trail riding or if your horse resists going somewhere or gets fixated on something. Finally, a little pro tip for you guys, the leg can work in many different ways. Your leg doesn't just limit to your calf. It consists of many muscles and joints. I do not recommend moving your leg any number of centimeters, this way or another, for any of these exercises because it only takes a change in your saddle, the rider, the stirrup length for the whole centimeter theory to get inaccurate. Such centimeter rules can be applied by professionals. It is better to realize that the leg acts as a stimulus in its lower part, while the upper part above the gastrocnemius muscle, the knee, the thigh, are used for lateral movements, extensions, shortening, and sometimes stopping the movement. We'll be talking about that in our next video. If you guys are interested in any particular sequences or exercises, let us know in the comments or by email at bioequestrian@gmail.com. You can find it in the description down below. If there are any questions, we'll clear it up in our next video. Remember to give us thumbs up if you liked the video or found it at least a little useful. For us, it's a huge motivation if we see that you guys find it useful. Stay tuned and let us know if you like these exercises.